How are you? The vanilla liver the asmanestal. Find out the secret that was in today's video. It was usually a secret, and whoever is able to discover the secret will have his name appear in the next video. Thank you very much. Thank you for your encouragement and all the beautiful things you do. God willing, with your support the channel will grow with more likes and shares. And let's start the story. Everything started about a month ago. I live in a house alone and wanting, and on this day I was sitting at home when I started to hear a scratching sound coming from somewhere in the house. I thought it was the sound of a wild creature or one of the rodents. I looked around the whole house for the source of the sound, but there was nothing. But with the days the scratching sound began to increase. What is it? You are not able to determine its source, and I said in the end that this is for sure. The mouse, for example, is the one who makes this sound and no longer cares about the sound and hurts him. I thought that the sound would go away with time, or that I would be able to find the source of this sound and get rid of it. 4 days have passed since the beginning of flowers of the sound. For the first time, my main job is a carpenter. I was cutting some wood while holding the saw and working. Suddenly the saw broke. I went to the basement, and what I had left for a long time did not come down, so I could get the spare saw from it. The bedroom was still there, and I opened the bag. My tools, and you are accused of searching for the saw. Suddenly I heard the same voice I was hearing. I had days left, but this time it was right behind me. It was much clearer before. I turned it around, looked behind Raya, and shone the searchlight on the source of the sound. And I did. I started closer to the source of the sound. The sound came from behind one of the walls in the place. I put my heart on the train, and heard the sound coming from this specific place, because it became clearer as I approached and wanted to wait. There was someone scribbling in treachery with a sharp performance. The voice was never that of a wild animal, as I thought. There is no wild animal that can make this sound. I felt very afraid. I quickly went outside the house and went to the police station in the town, who told them everything. Behind the wall in my house, it makes a scratching sound, but it's about to come out of the wall. The police's response to me was that it could just be an animal or wild creature making this sound, and we will not be able to rely on the report unless there is a clear reason. I left the police station, and frankly I was afraid to go home, so I decided to spend the night in the nearest hotel. The next day I had no other solution in front of me, except that I had to go home. I took my car and returned home, and when I arrived, it was a shock. The house I'm in, someone attacked by footprints everywhere. The refrigerator is open, and all the food in it is gone. I followed the footprints in the house that led to the basement. I took out my gun and went down to the basement. I was surprised that there was a hole in the wall. I approached it and directed the discovery to its end. The place was so dark that even the searchlight could not see through the darkness. I called the police. They arrived at the house and began to remove the relics found in the house. The policeman was able to approximately determine the number of people who entered the house, and he said that their number was approximately 8, but he was not able to identify these relics because the existing relics are strange and not recorded with them in the police records. This means that there are no traces similar to these stories. One of the policemen was near the hole and a light was visible in it. After examining it, he said that he was not able to determine the depth of this hole, and that it was difficult for him to enter and check this hole because they were. Every time they are exposed to something like this, he will seek the help of a team to enter Al-Fatiha and know what is in it and how deep it is, because now they do not have sufficient equipment to be able to carry out this mission. And then the condition left me and walked away, and I went out to the garden and cut some wood, and I did not have any solution. Other than that, it is better to live at home. With nowhere else to go, I patched the wall's gaping hole using the wood I managed to scavenge. bottom with the lock, but all the time I still had one question that worried me. Who are these people who entered the house and broke into it? As the days went by, the sounds did not return again, and I began to return to normal life, and the sounds disappeared except for almost poetry. I resembled what happened, and I considered it that simply people breaking into the house promised good, until one day when I was integrated and obeying the wood in the forest. He was in the house. I heard a real sound, a sound that sounded like snakes with a sound. Jay was from the basement. My heart started pounding from the basement, and I sabotaged my weapon. I opened the door with impure caution. As soon as I opened it, Aliyashara suddenly attacked him. He fell to the ground. A tall, hairy, human-like creature began to creep out, but he's very thin and his eyes are completely egg-shaped. Without the eyesight or blackness that we have is beginning to suffocate me severely. At this moment I saw another number of the same beings coming out of the hole that I had blocked with wood, and because of the suffocation, although I was not able to take myself, I began to lose consciousness. Eventually darkness enveloped everything. I don't know how long I stayed like this, but there was a severe pain in my back, and what I knew was that because of the friction on the ground in Ken, which pulled me from my leg on the ground, the inside of the corridor became distressed, and what was expanding, the deeper we went into it. After a while, a number of other beings gathered on me, and began to examine my body. And then they lifted me from on the ground and walked with me inside the corridor, and the night was enough because they were able to remove me on the ground until they arrived at a creature that resembled them, but its structure was different from the structure of other creatures. It was sitting in a high place, its body was shapeless, its skin was curled and hairless, and its eyes were similar to human eyes. But this entity was different from the rest. The blackness in his eyes is normal like humans. He raised his head, he looked at me, and when he saw me, he began to speak in a strange, incomprehensible language. What? I don't understand. I kept talking and I didn't understand a language he was speaking. I took the mobile phone out of my pocket and began recording his voice on the mobile phone to try to learn the language he was speaking, and also to have proof with me. If I get out of here alive, I'm sure these creatures will be there, if you really saw them. After a while, this being spoke to the others, and those who were hearing me with a strong voice and interest approached me, and I expected that they would hurt me, but instead of doing that, they prostrated before me. I was a holy person for them. I was surprised by their behavior and why this being. Do they do that? After a while, a group of them came and were holding something in their hands and presented it to me. They were insects and dead people. I knew that this was their food. I felt my smell. So the workshop retreated, and I told them with my hands as a sign of no, I will not eat this food. It is clear from their dignified expression that they understood what I meant, and I knew that they had no intention of harming or killing me. These creatures retreated and moved forward. They looked for seconds, and then one of them rushed forward, and the one that was clear from the appearance of a different woman. She rushed towards me, and she put her hands on me while she was examining me. Laura tore at her. Although I knew that they had no intention of harming me, I was still in a state of fear of them, especially since I did not know what these beings were. They leave me. I returned to my house again. The creature who is clearly their leader began to speak the language, again which I do not understand, and then the rest of the creatures took me away and they walked with me in the same corridor from which I entered, and after a while I arrived at Al-Fatiha, and then to Al-Bathroom al-House, and I left it, and the same female who was with him in the corridor came out with me, and she preferred to crawl in the basement like wild animals. I ran quickly and went outside the basement. Before she reached me, she closed the door and heard the sound of her continuous line on the door. I called the police. I told them what happened, and when the police officer arrived at the scene, I understood that there was a being inside the basement. Of course, he was skeptical of my words, and did not believe him until I went to the basement and opened the door. Open. This creature came out and attacked me. I was aware of this earth and this being above me. I tried to move, but you held me tightly. The officer tried to save me, but he stuck to me more until he bit me on the neck. The police brought a piece of wood and hit the object on the head until it fell to the ground. I tried to get rid of it. The officer took this object, tied it by his hand to a knife, and went outside the house, but the moment they left, this object began to emit smoke and turned charcoal black. The police took me under the name of the police and began the investigation process with me into what happened. The police locked the house, placed a red candle in the basement, and prevented anyone from entering. The police preferred to surround the house for a while, and doctors began to legislate the story of this creature and concluded that it had some organs like humans. But it doesn't have a human respiratory system, it just has a cage-place chest openings similar to a muscle that he uses for breathing, and experts said that this is what helps them live in this place underground. This changed their view of me. Very. That's why there is no black in the eye, and I also presented to the police the audio file on my mobile phone which contains the voice of these beings, and language experts began to analyze their language. And with research they came to the conclusion that the language they speak is not the language of the modern era, but rather this is the language of the people of North America. The indigenous people of North America are a very ancient language, and when they translated the words recorded in the record, they had their meaning. You will always remain Lena's king. We have inhabited this place for generations since the war, continuing to develop and evolve over the years. I want you to teach your language to the rest of the people who live underground. If you die, no one will teach it to them again. What I learned after that is that these creatures escaped an unknown war almost 3,000 years ago and hid underground. And over time their bodies began to evolve day after day to suit life underground until they reached the form they are in now. Police have denied that they have seen any of the creatures to the media, and let me admit to myself that I did not talk about this secret forever. The police closed Al-Fatiha in the basement with cement and concrete. In the hospital, the wound stuck where this object returned. Over time the wound began to heal, and I began to return to my normal life until today, when I was standing in front of the mirror, checking on the wound, and I decided to take a shower. I lifted the t-shirt and was surprised that there were holes in the ribcage. They began to appear. I approached the mirror to see what this was. Clearly, I was even more shocked when I saw that the skin on my body had begun to turn blue. Blue blood vessels appear in their hands. I went to the hospital and the doctors began to examine me. But they did not diagnose the disease, and they said that this is a rare disease. They did not see it. Before that, I returned home. I no longer went outside because of my appearance, and what began day after day became more and more until I arrived because I felt severe pain when I was exposed to sunlight. I felt that the skin was burning. I was not so much as cutting trees, nor did I even do anything if it was simple. I knew that I would not be able to live in this outside world, and that now my appropriate place is this corridor. The second was added to the basement. The police put the broken concrete on the hatch. It took me 3 hours until I was able to open it again, and before I inserted a headset outside the house, the police were telling me that it was. I heard about what happened to me, and I felt I was in danger, so get up and help me. I ventured into the hole, entered the corridor, and now find myself among other beings in the corridor, remaining integral to them as one of their own.